The Gemara tells us that the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because what we call baseless hatred. And that word baseless hatred is comes across a little bit strange, because is there any hatred? Would you hate someone baselessly? There's always going to be a reason for it. But it means that the reason that there was the hatred was baseless. There was no good reason for it. Is there ever a good reason? Well, as we did mention a while ago, without getting into a lot of length, there are certain times where a person could actually do certain types of sins that actually there is no more mitzvah to love him as a fellow Jew anymore. And actually, if he has become a rasha, an evil person, for instance, for instance, if a person were to commit a sin that everybody knows is wrong to do, and he still does it anyway after being warned and rebuked, he still does it anyway, and he's still intentionally doing it, he knows better and he's still doing it, that person becomes a rasha. A rasha, we have no mitzvah to love. Actually, we actually have to have negative feelings towards them. So there is sometimes license to dislike someone, but the problem is that all too often we don't have that license to dislike someone. We dislike them anyway. So when the Torah when the Gemara says the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, it means that was a situation where the dislike was baseless. It had no good reason, which typically means it was jealousy, which led to the dislike. So now we typically understand sinas chinam as, again, a result of jealousy, and therefore I don't talk nicely to you. I don't act nicely towards you. Maybe I'll speak lashon hara about you. I'll just have ill feelings towards you, and that can create a distance between us. That's how typically we understand what sinas chinam means. I want to share with you an explanation given by the Yaris Tavash. Yaris Tavash was a sefer written by Rabbi Yonasan Eibschitz. And in Yaris Tavash, he has a very interesting interpretation of what the Gemara means by sinas chinam, by unwarranted or baseless hatred. And he begins saying, Habitu ru'u kama gadol oven sinas chinam, v'kama toiva ma'akeves al yoda. How great is the sin of sinas chinam and how much good it holds back. And this problem of sinas chinam still exists in our times. It's widespread. And as is mentioned by many commentaries, if sinas chinam is the reason why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and the Beis Hamikdash has not come back, then that means that sin has not been rectified. That sin is still existing amongst us, and therefore the Beis Hamikdash hasn't come back. But the Yaris Tavash continues, because now he's going to explain what he means by sinas chinam. Chas v'shalom lo yimar shelo yerv ish es chufay shel chaveroi. Chas v'shalom, to think this means that we don't love another person. V'yim yikra lo nezek. If, let's say, some kind of potential damage is threatening a person, or sheyal hasrara ala Yehudi, or for some reason the government is coming after another Jew, halo kol Yisrael's reason latzilai. Every Jew is going to be quick to save him. Vishtadlus benafshim ma'idam, in their efforts with all their soul and all their possessions. And meaning, even if you want to save a person from damage, if you know someone's going to get damaged, or you know that a person is being wrongfully pursued by the government for some reason, there are going to be people out there that are clearly going to do what they can for the person. All the more so, we're talking about a danger to life. If a person needs to be saved, there are people that are going to put themselves out day and night to help. If your story is people getting lost in the woods and you have all these people going to look for them, and you have different kind of situations. If you look at some of the magazines now, you've got this airlift Medivac, a Jewish, from Medi-Airlift organization that takes people to hospitals where they need to go. I mean, there's a lot of, and all the other tremendous organizations that are out there for children that are sick, children who aren't well, for people who aren't well, High Lifeline and RCCS. I mean, you've got tremendous organizations out there that are helping people who are very sick. And if, let's say, somebody gets sick, everybody davens, everybody visits. and any kind of assistance is all there. Even to run 3 parsais in the sand. I guess that's some kind of expression, There you'll go even that far to go ahead and help someone who's sick. Let's say a woman is having difficulty in childbirth. We're talking about the Yaris Tvash's times, which is a couple hundred years ago. A woman is having difficulty in childbirth, and he gets around, and people find out about it. How they call anoshim sha'ananis v'ashirais, all the rich women and the tranquil women. Yakuma b'shalai, they're going to get up in the dead of the night. The yelchu liyosneyar lazar, they'll get up to help. Yesh and they'll daven, and they'll help whatever they can. Hayeshla abba v'ach v'reyes gadayla mizu. Is there any greater love and brother and friendship and brother and sisterhood more than that? Zachul kan ama kadisha kamei malka kadisha. And as a matter of fact, the kind of assistance we give each other is well known by our non-Jewish neighbors. You sometimes go into a hospital and and they find out that you're connected with the Jewish community, and they say, "Oh, you're taken care of." They know that we take care of each other. This is well known, and apparently was well known even hundreds of years ago. So therefore, he's trying to figure out where is the sinas chinam, or where is the sinas chinam that he's trying to focus on in his time. Doesn't mention lashon hara. No mention about that. He talks about how everybody's out there ready to help somebody else. All this has to do with loving another person. He calls it physically. But to love someone else's soul, to care about somebody else's neshama. She'ikra hava, that's the true love. Ahava nitzchis, v'ahava shasefer l'skayim. That's an eternal love. That's the love that's gonna last. Harabim ein beinenu elama'at. We don't have too many people that love another person's neshama. What does that mean? Kimiyira ish esre'eyu haylach shevev b'derech libay. If you see another person who's just kind of following his heart, his desires of his heart, meaning he's on a bad path, lo yasaroisai, doesn't go over and rebuke him. Lo yarmaloi alachi, it doesn't say, no, my brother, lo taiva maseh, this is not a good thing to do. V'loizu derech hachayim, and this is not the way of life. Asher derech hakaidishi karila, that's called the way of holiness. Meaning, you see somebody else doing something wrong, you say something to him. That's what he's going to focus on. You see somebody else doing something wrong. You're really a friend. You really love the person. If you really love the person, you should love their neshama. And if they're not going on the right path, so why don't you say something? And if you're not saying something, that means you don't love them. V'adarabba, and actually on the contrary, sometimes we kind of feel good about it. If sometimes somebody's kind of go off the wrong path, you kind of, sometimes feel good about it because it makes you feel better than him. You see somebody talking in shul. In a place, in a point of davening, it's forbidden to talk. No one says anything. Or you see somebody scoffing, you see somebody speaking lashon hara, or anything similar. No one says anything. No one protests. Oy vavoy, he says. Is there any greater enemy than that? He sees his friend is drowning in a river, and doesn't do anything about it. Zu sinas chinam b'li mitzvahs. This is sinas chinam without comparison. Shahoya bezman ba'yasheni, which he says existed in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash. Now, how does he figure this out? How does he build this up? So he says, Ki rabu ha'evim v'lo michu, because many people were sinning and no one protested. Ubishvel zeh nasu pirtzeis rabis ba'yasheni. Because of this, many breaches in Yiddishkeit occurred during the second Beis Hamikdash. Meaning, what I understand, he's trying to answer the following question, and he's going to elaborate. During the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, there were many groups of people that were rebellious against the Torah. You had the Tzedukim, the Sadducees. You had the Isiim. You had a lot of different groups. It's not like, the Tzedukim. The Tzedukim were very powerful people.
They were fighting each other.
They were very powerful people. They were fighting each other. They were very powerful, the Tzedukim. And you had other groups. So his point really is, the Gemara says, the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. Sinas Chinam is the problem. You got bigger problems. You had rampant apikoursis. You had rampant heresy going on amongst the Jewish people. There was so much of it. And the Gemara says the Gemara doesn't mention that problem. So he continues. First of all, you had the sect of the Tzedukim. The Sadducees didn't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh. The Yasser Kitais Shapakru b'divay Torah Shabbal Peh. And you had other groups that had rebelled against Torah Shabbal Peh. Umaru Pi Bezdin Haggadah Yerushalayim. And they rebelled against what the Sanhedrin directed the Jewish people in. This is a greater sin than all other sins. You don't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh? That's greater than any other sin. Kizel b'chal kfira, v'derech zarahi. You don't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh? You're a kaifer. You're not B'kairis. You're a heretic. V'derech zarahi, mi sha'im v'yashayna lo yihaya oven gadol nimtze b'neiim klal. And to say there was no other great sin in their midst at that time. There was nothing else going on. What do you mean? Hayesh oven gadol apikurim shekafru b'Torah Shabbal Peh. Is any greater sin than all the people that had denied who denied the validity of Torah Shabbal Peh, of the oral law, Ubara Sanhedrin, and defied the guidance and the teachings and the halachic decisions of the highest court? Hashem, they sit on the throne of God. We say Hashem stands in their assembly. By Susim, you had the Tzedukim by Susim, got Yehuda Galali, you had those in the northern Galilee, the Kacha Yushechlim, the Aris and Midbaris. You had those people that were living in deserts and the forests. This was all against the will of the sages. These people refused to go to the Beis Hamikdash on the Yom Tovim. They didn't get married. And they adopted the practices of priests and nuns that you find by the Christians, and he says by other idol worshippers, like Akum Kadmainim and early idol worshippers. And then you had the groups that denied the resurrection of the dead, the eternity of the soul, that in the afterlife. Is there any greater sin than that? And what greater evil can there be? The last Kohen Gadol, before the last Kohen Gadol, the last Yom Kippur of the second Beis Hamikdash was a Tzeduki, was a Sadducee. Mashkos Yosef ben Gurion, the Sifra Ramiyim, Tavach Ruchai, the High Kohen, Oven, Yamach Shemai. He says, based on the Sefer Josephus, the last Kohen Gadol was a Tzeduki. So the Eicha Yatzayim Nivchar Eis Ratzon Hashem L'Smali Racham Al Yisrael Linachem Ha'ara Mishtzera Misayv Kazeh Pai Kadesh B'nima. How do you expect the Jewish people to be atoned on that Yom Kippur when you have such an evil person, the one going into the Holy of Holies? Okay, V'lachein. So this is his question. There was plenty of very serious averis going on. Apikoursis, heresy. That's what was going on in different levels and different shades. So those are the greatest sins you can have. So why are Chazal talking about sinas chinam? And that he says, "V'lachein mashamru Chazal." That which our sages say, that the sin of the second Beis Hamikdash was sinas chinam, baseless hatred. Hakavana kizehu shoyresh hameri. This was the root of the rebelliousness. And because of this, all this evil came about. Because they did not say anything to the sinners. because at the early stages, no one said anything to them. No one stood up to them. Therefore, the cancer grew and grew and grew until it was out of control. That's how he's explaining sinas chinam. Sinas chinam means the root of all the problems was because people didn't care. What didn't they care about? What weren't they loving about? What were they being enemies to their fellow Jew about? By not getting up and telling them you're on the wrong path. Be'emes, Reiv hamarnei am, hein loimdim, hein lein loimdim. Most people, whether they are learned or not, the only one who's supposed to give rebuke is the rabbi. But anybody else, it's not the right thing. It's not the way to go to rebuke your friend. Lizeu sheker. And he says that is sheker. Kasher the Rashi pamim rabbis shetayim atem bazeh. The Yaris Vash says, I have taught this many times before. This is a big mistake. Adarabba, on the contrary. Rabbi Yochiach, if it's the rabbi or the teacher that's going to be the one giving the rebuke, Yomer, what do people say? I'm not like the rabbi. Everybody can be like that. He's telling me I should do this, I should do that. That's for people like him. Not everybody can be like him. Umi kamayo eiseh. And then at the end, it turns into, making fun of the rabbi and that kind of stuff, it starts like, who can be like him? And then you start getting into all the other things about him. But if, let's say, someone like you, someone on your level, a friend, gives rebuke, and he can say to him, what do you suspect me of? I'm pretending that you're not who you are. I'm someone that doesn't understand you. I'm someone that doesn't understand who you are. I got the same heart like you do. But what you're doing is wrong. I'm not doing it because of the fact, but I'm telling you this. I'm not telling you this because I'm so much better than you. I'm just like you. I'm your friend. But I'm telling you this is not right way to go. Why don't you have mercy on your soul? And why are you rebelling against your Creator? Rabbeinu Shlomo said, and he was a real darshan. He was an expert at giving sermons. He said, "I'm telling you that this can have more effect than any of the drashas that I've ever given." Lakach amru Chazal, and this is why our sages have said, "Asay lecha rav, k'nei lecha chaver." Make for yourself a rav, a teacher, a rebbe, and acquire for yourself a friend. Or literally buy yourself a friend. Now you don't buy friends. But what that means is that if, in order to be able to gain a friendship, you do have to, for some reason, invest even money into gaining that friend, then that's what you should do. Why did they didn't say Knei Lecha Rav, didn't say acquire a Rav? Why not? Because you need a good friend more than even a Rav. Until the point would be that you should go and put, if necessary, a lot of money to get this good friend. To associate with a Rasha, and a friend can do more than 10 rabbis. Now, most people refrain from doing this. Why? Because their friend is going to make fun of them. The Yaimbru and say, who made you the rabbi? Overnight, he became the town rebuker. Overnight, he became the town maggid. He became the town prophet. Overnight, he became the person who's walking around telling everybody what to do. And that's what people are afraid of. This kind of scoffing, this kind of foolishness. But whoever is wise and understands, that more than they will make fun of you, the more that these young people make fun of you, the more your reward will be. And at the end, your words would stand, and their words will wilt away. There is a saying, a famous saying that we find in the Mishnah Edius, better that I be a fool all the days of my life, and that I shouldn't be considered evil for 1 second in the eyes of Hashem. And whatever ridicule that you may get is not going to be anything near the reward you'll get from Hashem. As stated in the Zohar, Kikasha Yisrael mispalim. Listen to this. This is a fascinating idea. Kikasha Yisrael mispalim b'tzibur. When the Jewish people daven as a congregation, u'mesayim b'rchas tchias hamesim, and they conclude the bracha of Machaya Mesim, the second bracha of the Shemona Esrei. Baruch atah Hashem Machaya Mesim. Bless you, Hashem, who resurrects the dead. Kuruz koi. There's an announcement that goes out in Shemayim. Manhu gavra the mashkiach lohichiach chitim. Who is the person who gives his attention to rebuking sinners? Ulahadram the fulchana de malka kadisha, and brings them back to the worship of the holy king. That's what goes out. Why are they talking about by Machaya Mesim? Who gives rebuke? Who brings people back to the way of Hashem? The answer is because included in Machaya Mesim is tshuva. There is Machaya Mesim in the sense of actually resurrecting the dead. And then there is Machaya Mesim of giving back a person life, because when they have sinned, they are dead, or part of them is dead. And when they do tshuva, they come back to life. That's included in the bracha Machaya Mesim. So when the Chal Yisrael say Machaya Mesim, goes out this announcement. Who pays enough attention? Who puts in the time to rebuke people and to bring them back to the service of the king? Uba Malach, an angel comes, and the angel comes and brings a picture. Here he is. Here's the guy. Here's the person who does it. Okay. Look in the Zohar how it elaborates on the great praise and reward that comes to such a person. So this is the Yaris Tvash's unique approach to Sinas Chinam. Sinas Chinam, in our minds, always, like I say, includes going after a person in a physical sense, but Sinas Chinam can also manifest itself in a spiritual sense. Do we care about somebody's neshama or we don't? And that would even go as far to go over to someone and tell them you're doing something wrong. If you really care about the person, then you go over to them and try to help them. Not only in a physical sense, if they're sick, if they need some kind of help, but even more, where they really need help. Where they really need help when their neshamas are lacking. That is where true friendship can come out. And that is where he says, in many ways, a friend can do more than a rabbi or a teacher, because you're a peer. And sometimes a peer's words can make a greater effect, make a greater impression. And as he says, when the bracha Machaya Mesim is being said, this is a time in Shemayim where they're looking to praise those who do so. So maybe take this new interpretation of Sinas Chinam to heart, and to eradicate Sinas Chinam in all its forms, and to be able to see the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash from Meir V'Meinu.